So this thing looks scary. On top of the pole being in two pieces, we got a broken choke lever. We've got a broken primer bulb. This thing's obviously been sitting. Hey y'all, thanks for tuning back into Chickanic. I hope everybody's having a great week. It is a beautifully overcast and windy day here in Arkansas, and I thought I'd bring y'all to the shop with me. Had one of my commercial tree cutters message me yesterday afternoon, said he was dropping some stuff off. Come out this morning to find one of the extendable steel pole saws in two pieces, and I see this all the time. It's one of the most common problems that people with pole saws that extend like this have. And what do we got here? MS201TC. Okay, that thing looks like it's been ran over, missing some stuff. I don't know, we'll see what's going on with it. Before I dig into those though, I gotta show you something. I have a perfect example of one of those silent killers, one of those cascading effects of one thing wearing out, which leads to something else breaking, and then next thing you know, you go from only needing a $5 part to $100 worth of stuff. Let me show you what my neighbor brought. He came in yesterday and said that his wheel was wobbling. Let's get this in the light here. I want you to see that hole, okay? His bushing is supposed to look like this. Look at the difference there. That thing is so wore out. Just wait till you see the other side. This is the side that was facing inwards of the spindle, so it was rubbing on the metal dust cover that's part of the spindle. I'll show you here in a second. But yeah. Wobbling, yeah, slightly. Now it looks like this is all one piece, but this top section here is actually part of the bearing. So if you look inside there, you can see that lip. We've got to beat all that out. Same thing goes with the other side. You can see sort of the lip still left on that one, but you can see inside the lip right there. That thing is worn out. Now, luckily, he caught it just in time, because a lot of times if you're not paying attention to what's going on, your tire starts wobbling like that, the bushings are out. The next thing to go is your wheel spindle. Fortunately, though, it looks like the dust cover got a little messed up on this one from it riding on that bushing, but the rest of it seems okay. Also, if you don't catch it in time on the rim itself, it'll wear until it wears the inside of your hub out, and then you've got to have a new rim. Sometimes those things are 70 to 100 bucks. So what do we see all the time? We see destroyed bushings, we see destroyed rims and spindles. That ends up costing you like 150 bucks when all you needed in the beginning was a $5 part. Now I leave these along with complete wheel kits in my Amazon store. I'll leave a link in the description box below. All right, so the 201 TC is definitely gonna need some parts though. Let's get this pole saw over to the bench. So this thing looks scary. On top of the pole being in two pieces, we got a broken choke lever. We've got a broken primer bulb. This thing's obviously been sitting. Let's start tearing it apart, check compression, and figure out what we're gonna do about this carburetor situation. And yeah, when you have a FS90 or something of the sorts like this, if it's that hard to pull, you definitely have a valve issue. Let's go ahead and pop this plug out. Check compression. Now these are going to be lower than regular two-strokes. Wow. Can you see the carbon buildup? Let me get a flashlight. Yeah. That spark plug's not gonna fire at all. Okay. All right, I broke up my HD endoscope by Depstech. I leave these in the description box below if you want to get your own. This is sort of the fancy one that they sent me. I'm not sponsored by them at all, but because I like their product that I had purchased, I went ahead and told you all about it, and they were nice enough to send me this bad boy. So, I mean, if you want to know what good definition is, that's the sweat glistening off my cheek. Okay. This thing is pretty awesome. So I made sure that the piston is all the way down. I'm going to go in. This one also articulates, so I can actually make it look, check that out. Sweet. So I'm going to stick it on, straighten her out here. Stick it on down in there. And, oh yeah, let me show y'all. So there's one side of her. The other side, that thing is beautiful. Thank goodness. Okay, busting out my Mityvac compression tester. Another thing I'll leave in the description box below. All right, let's see what we got here. Ooh, this thing does have a valve issue. Ooh, just gotta force through it. Ooh. All right, we actually have 800 pounds of compression, which is perfect. Now, when it comes to 4-mix Stihls especially, I've seen them run on 70, 80 pounds of compression just fine. 90 is pretty much perfect, so we're good to go. Now, you might be asking, why don't you see compression like you do on the 2-strokes, you know, the 110, 120, 140 sometimes? That's because these 4-mixes have a decompression valve, and you're never going to see the full dynamic compression of the piston and cylinder because it's releasing a little bit of it every time you pull. Let's go ahead and check for some fire. Looks great. So where are we at now? The customer told us that it was obviously running whenever they got it stuck in a tree and pulled it into 2 pieces. So it's just been sitting since then. We've checked the piston and cylinder. It looks beautiful. It's got compression. The rewind works well, but these are notorious for the clutches being out. Now, when the clutch goes out, the springs will expand, the clutch will expand, and it will get stuck inside the clutch housing. So when we start it up, it'll start running the saw blade, and no amount of adjusting is going to get it to stop. So let's check the clutch. Now, the clutch housing is located behind this grate right here, and I'm going to pull the rewind, and when I do, the clutch is going to spin, and what we hope for is that that clutch housing is not going to be spinning with the clutch. So, let me... Nope. Looks like it's free. So although that test isn't 100% accurate and we won't know until it's actually running, that is a good indicator that it probably is going to work. Now let's go through the fuel system. This thing is gross, and I know y'all are going to freak out if I just keep repairing it without cleaning it up first. So let me knock that one out. Is that better, guys? Oh yeah. So the next crisis we need to avert is the fuel line assembly. Now, Stihl decided they'd have some bright idea to have their fuel lines coming from their carburetor to a plastic grommet that fits inside of the tank, and then another fuel line connected to the bottom on a nipple to the fuel filter. Now, unfortunately, over time, from just the plastic degrading or being left out in the sun or whatever, many times, probably 50% of the time at least, when I go to try to get this grommet out by prying up from this one little prong right here that you have to use for leverage, it'll just break off. And then you have a really fun time trying to get these out by grabbing the nipples. So we don't want to go that route. Hopefully, I'm going to look inside the fuel tank, check the fuel line out. Hopefully it's still in good shape. Maybe we can just change the fuel filter out because I do not want to mess with that thing. One thing you do want to be aware of is you've got one fuel line coming from the top of your carburetor closest to your primer bulb. That is the return back into your tank. The one that is connected to the fuel filter that goes to farthest away from the primer bulb is here. So we know that the one that goes to the bottom of the carburetor is the one closest to us, and the one that's going to the top of the carburetor is the one that's farthest away, because we are going to change these lines out and we want to make sure we put them back on correctly. So I'm going to remove these lines, remove this throttle cable, and get this carburetor off. All right, carburetor's off. We're fixing to dig into it, but you might notice I look a little different. That's because it's not the same day. It's not the next day. It is 2 days after I started filming this video. And I was broken. 2 days ago, sitting right here, I felt that, too familiar backstabbing pain where you're like, I know you guys have felt it before. I'm fixing to blow a disc. Okay, so I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand, I couldn't walk. I just had to lay down, and thankfully, just resting a couple days, I'm all better. But I am gonna take it easy. Now, I'm going to give it a slight little tug test here. These are real bad about turning to mush inside the tank. Well, it came all the way off, which means that it wasn't on there secure anyways. Needs a new fuel line. Great. So now I get to do the very unfun part of removing this plastic tank grommet. Alright, now if there is some special Stihl tool to do this, please let me know about it in the description box below. But so far, the only way I know how to take it out is I've got this handy dandy little curved flathead right here. I'm going to get underneath this lip and push up. Now, if you just do that, you're going to break this little prong off every single time, and then it's not good because you've got to grab the nipples to get it out and it's destroyed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pry up on it as I'm pulling the nipples up with pliers or my fingers. I'm going to try first with just my fingers, and hopefully that'll work. But you want to give it leverage this way too, so it's not putting all the strain on the prong there. So, okay. All right, so that's the outside. This is the inside. Get my fuel line up on there really well. Doesn't have to be that long going into the tank because it just needs to lay on the bottom right there. Stretch this end up just a little bit so it's easier to get that fuel filter on. Just like that. Now when we pop it back in here, we're going to want to get, I use pliers and I just push down evenly on both sides, usually having somebody help me. That way it doesn't, flip over on its side on me. And just push straight down. We're ready here. Oh yeah. I got her all cleaned up. Let me throw her back together. Since I'm gimpy today, Alex has offered to be my pull starter. Break out my handy dandy adjusting toolkit. I'll leave these in the description box below. They will pretty much adjust everything. Use the hexagon for the Stihl stuff.
Still pulling weird?
Yeah, it is pulling weird. So let's adjust them valves. Now this is a common issue with these FS 90s, 100s, 101s. They all usually end up with some kind of valve issue that you have to address. In fact, when they first started selling them and the backpack blowers that had the valves, they would sell them with a feeler gauge and a gasket. Like they knew that it was going to mess up, which is sort of crazy to me. But anyways, it's super simple to fix. If you need to, you need a 10 thousandths feeler gauge. You're going to want to replace the gasket every single time. The part number is a 4180-029-0500, a flashlight, a T27 torque, and your 8mm nut driver. You're going to want to remove your plug and take your flashlight and look down towards the flywheel. And you will see that as you pull it around, you're going to find a little arrow on your flywheel. Let me bring you in. So there's our little arrow right there, and we want to point it directly at that screw holding our magneto to the cylinder block. And when you look inside, you can see that we're at top dead center. But the problem is there's two top dead centers, and you got to figure out which one you're at. So we're going to remove our valve cover. So how to tell if you're at the right top dead center? All right, so we can see our arrow is pointing towards our magneto screw. Look inside. We are at top dead center, and when I move the I'm just going to move the flywheel back and forth. You can see that my rocker arms do not move at all. Now, if we are in the incorrect top dead center, let me do one full rotation around. Bring it back up here. All right, line my arrow up there. So we've got the arrow pointing at our magneto screw. We got the piston all the way up. But when I move this flywheel back and forth, you see those rocker arm moving? That means you're in the wrong top dead center. So we're going to do another full rotation, get back to the right one. Make sure our arrow is pointing in the right spot. Got our arrow. We're top dead center. I move it back and forth. Nothing moves around. We're good to adjust. So now that I got it in the correct spot. Oh, that's super loose. Super loose. Okay, we're going to tighten this one up just a little bit. Ooh, I'm still turning. Still turning. There we go. Where you can feel it grabbing just like that. Tighten this one up. Almost. Good. Goodness gracious. That one was way out. There we go. Now we want to take off that old gasket and pop this on a new one here. Do not try to test it with the valve cover off. It does not want to work correctly that way. So make sure to put everything back together before you test run. All right, so I got the valves adjusted so it's not going to have that jerky pull whenever I go to try to start it, and I can get back to trying to adjust this carburetor now. So let's choke, prime, got it on start. Oh yeah, that's much easier. Now, even though I did this repair on a Stihl pole saw, you will find that it is the same exact engine, clutch housing, throttle assembly as a Stihl trimmer. So hopefully this video will save you some time, money, and frustration in the future. And if you have one of these Stihl units and you've got clutch issues, check out this video right here.